when you start thinking about how to get your brand out there, then you have to start thinking about the actual motivations of the individuals that you're trying to reach. So, we're going to discuss a little bit about marketing for entrepreneurs. And if you think about it, the first stage in the customer purchase decision is really the problem recognition. In other words, the customer has a problem or there's a need for a product or service out there. And then that leads that customer to make the decision to purchase a product. But what if there's not a product that a person can purchase for that problem? That's where an entrepreneur comes in. Because entrepreneurs need to understand that they can actually trigger inside the minds of the customer a recognition of a problem. And we can use advertising as a means to do that. In other words, you're creating a need for a product, a need that you never thought you might really need. And we can definitely use the cell phone as that example of, well, everybody thinks now you must have a phone in order to operate. But I can assure you, for hundreds of years, people did not have phones and they were living comfortably. So go figure on that. But a marketer of a product idea can certainly create in the minds of the customer an idea that they need that product to be able to do the things that they do. Oftentimes, once a need has been expressed, the customer will go in search of a solution to the need, and oftentimes it becomes an information search. So, for instance, if I'm hungry, I go in search of information that can help me get past that hunger. You might take from previous experiences to help you in figuring out how to satisfy that hunger, and you may take from brand awareness. But the deal is, if you're an entrepreneur and your brand is not in the customer's brand awareness set, there's no possibility your customer will buy your brand. So your first marketing task is to make sure your new entrepreneurial brand is part of the brand awareness set. So when in search of information, you wind up with the brand comparisons. In the case of food, you might compare different restaurants. So let's think about my issue with gluten intolerance. When in search of a restaurant, I might search for a restaurant that might meet the criteria of having gluten-free products or selections. You must also consider the brand consideration set. That's the brand the customer would actually consider from the brand set. So let's say, for instance, that I want to go to a restaurant and I want to go out and eat. Well, if the brand is a fast food brand, I might not be willing to go to that particular restaurant, even though they might have gluten-free products. I might want a sit-down restaurant, and so that excludes me from going to some of those fast food restaurants. So basically, your customer has these expectations on what criteria they may use to select a given product. My brand awareness set may change for different types of products. For instance, let's say I need to go buy milk, and perhaps milk purchases are more about the price at a given brand store. So I might think, well, I'm going to go buy milk. It's a basic staple, and I only want to pay X dollars for it. Oddly enough, if I just wanted milk, I could go to, let's say, a Walgreens or a gas station and probably get milk the cheapest, because that's where that's something that draws somebody into that store. Whereas if I were to go to a Walmart or a Kroger, they have all sorts of things. So milk might not be a price point at those stores like it might be at other stores. There's an example that I can use here in Jonesboro of learning about milk and the use of milk. And I could go to Aldi and get milk let's say for $2.50 a gallon. For a long time, if I went to Kroger, I'd pay $4.89. But when Aldi came in, Kroger knew that they had this product that people could go and purchase somewhere else for $2.50. So they lowered their price on milk. And why would they do that? Because then, I get all the nice features of a Kroger and I get milk for $2.50. They're really just pulling you into the store is what they're doing. There's also post-purchase phases where we see if the expectations are met, i.e., those little machines that are out there when you can go to a grocery store, and when you go in, there's a machine that has those stuffed animals in it. You would think when you would go and buy that you would and participate, that you have certain expectations that you're going to get an animal out of there, but after a while you learn it's going to be pretty hard for you to get one of those stuffed animals out of one of those machines, and you might not wind up using it. There's always someone else that comes along that could actually purchase it. Now, so there's purchase decision issues. There's problem recognition, information searching, alternative evaluations, purchase decisions, and then post-purchase decisions. But there's also what we call psychological influences and sociological influences. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the sociological influences. And those come down to, first we're going to talk about psychological influences. I'm not sure what I just said, but we're going to talk about psychological influences. And psychological influences affect why and how the customer behaves in terms of his or her purchase behaviors. Psychological influences that the entrepreneur must be aware of include personality, lifestyles, motivations, learning, perceptions, attitudes, and involvement. Personality refers to a person's consistent behavior and response over time. And there are some personality traits such as extroversion. And in the case of extroversion, this trait includes things like excitability, sociability, talkativeness, assertiveness, and high amounts of emotional expressiveness. So you've met people who are extroverted. And then you get another personality, and this personality is agreeability. And with agreeableness, the personality dimensions include attributes like trust, altruism, kindness, affection, and other prosocial behaviors. Another personality trait is consciousness. And this is a common feature of this dimension includes high levels of thoughtfulness with good impulse control and goal-directed behaviors. Those high in consciousness tend to be organized and mindful of details. Then you get another group, and they're kind of neurotic. These individuals have experiences of emotional instability, anxiety, moodiness, irritability, and sadness. And then the last of the 5 personality traits is openness. And these characteristics deal with imagination and insight. And those high in these traits often tend to have a broad range of interest. Then you have psychological influences related to motivation. And with motivation, that's the force that causes us to act, including satisfying some kind of need and that sort of thing. We also have learning influences, whether you're able to learn from the information that you receive and whether what you learned is valuable enough to you to make you think, well, I might want to go purchase that. Then you have perception. So there's fact, learning, and then there's perception, which is how you perceive something. And so Walter Lippmann said perception is reality. So if you have a product and the perception of your product is that it is a tool that allows me to have easy access to the world, well, that's pretty good perception. although it might not allow you to have access to all of the world, you perceive that it opens up a whole new world for you. Attitudes, um, those are deep-seated things that you have in your own mind that you've grown up with. They're impacted by individual differences, social categories, and social relationships. So who you hang out with, who your family is, what, these parents, brothers, sisters, friends that influence you, what's your age and gender and that sort of thing. Those elements all assist in controlling your attitude toward a particular product, whatever it might be. And then involvement. People that are engaged in the product perceive the product to be useful to them. People that aren't involved with the product oftentimes have bad perceptions of that particular product. All right, and then we move to social cultural influences. And with these, social cultural theory is an emerging theory in psychology that looks at the important contributions that society makes to individual development. This theory stresses the interaction between developing people and the culture in which they live. So you have demographics, which deals with age and gender and income, education, occupation, marital status, population size, and population growth rates. So you get the baby boomers, Generation X, Y, millennials, all those people that have different ways in which they react to information. Then you have what we call the culture or subculture. And in this particular area, this is a measure of understanding ritualistic behaviors. We all engage in rituals. There's no doubt about it. We have marriages, we have death, we have birthdays, we have Christmas, we have Hanukkah, we have Kwanzaa, we have all other forms of, we have Diwali, and there are others that I'm probably leaving out, not intentionally, but we have a lot of different rituals that we follow. And these rituals are common, daily, and habitual rituals. They're also subcultures within the process that we live in. Some of these rituals that we have, ritual behavior or habitual behavior, would be like brushing your teeth, taking a shower, making a meal. And you need to determine the rituals and see if there's a product or service that capitalizes on this ritual. For instance, what could be done to help someone with the ritualistic behavior? We could use the toothbrush. Could we try to make a ritual better, faster, cheaper, more convenient, or more fun? An example of that would be like music and purchasing CDs. Apple came along and gave you another option in order to obtain music. The cell phone changed the ritual of using a landline. Letters in the post office went away because they were impacted by emails. There are basically 5 rituals that we have that we walk through on a daily basis. And so the BBDO worldwide study revealed these. And one of those 5 rituals is preparing for battle. And what does that mean? That means getting ready to meet the outside world. It means brushing your teeth, taking a shower, eating something, talking to a family member. Most people typically with these rituals rely on the same brand. It's tough to break it, but it can be done. And that's what an entrepreneur has to look for, the ability to break that ritualistic behavior. Another is feasting. In our culture, we find a great deal of pleasure in eating, and eating reunites us. Sharing food is important to us. Everyone brings something to the table. We need involvement in the food preparation. So there's another element of what happens there that would get us involved. Another ritual is called sexting up. This transforms us from everyday person to our fabulous selves. Our outfits, our special products, our entertainment venues, our meals that we go to, those are areas where we have to understand how somebody gets ready to go to a nicer event than just an everyday, regular day. We also have rituals related to returning to camp. What does that mean? Returning to camp means that's when we come home and we unwind, we exhale, we go from tense to relaxed. Typically, returning to camp averages about 4 or 5 hours, and it includes fewer than 5 steps. First, what do you do? The first thing you do when you get home, you change clothes. You kick off your shoes. You get into your sweatpants. You flip on the TV. You're going to be in the habit of consuming some media. You check out a newspaper, let's say, or a magazine. You might go online and look. You might go to social media and look. You take a shower. You take a bath. All of the brands that can be created for relaxation, calmness, self-satisfaction, and ease are bowled up into that one area of returning to camp. And then the last phase of that is the protecting yourself for the future. That relaxation moves us from relaxed to feeling safe and secure. So what do? We get ready for tomorrow. Prepare for your bag for tomorrow. You lay out your clothes, you turn off your computer, you pour your glass of drink of some sort. You drink some water, you take your medication, you set your alarm. You do all of those types of ritualistic things right before you go to bed and go to sleep. And those are important elements to this whole culture that we live in. Another social cultural influence that impacts consumer behavior is social class. And so what's your occupation, what's your education, your income, or your upper level, middle level, lower level. And then your reference groups. And your reference groups impact what you wear, the foods you eat, the services you attend. Parents may, what your parents say, what your family says, what your church says, what your religion says. All those are reference groups for you, and those groups impact what you do and the products that you purchase. Then you have personal influences. All of us have probably some public opinion leader that we use for different things. I may use one public opinion leader to find out information about a computer, whereas I might use another public opinion leader to find out about clothing, let's say. So personal influences oftentimes, in essence, in marketing, that's creating a buzz. And definitely you want to create a buzz. And you can create a buzz through viral marketing. And this allows you a process of using social media to create the buzz about your product. So, you as a marketer have some things that you have to do in order to better function in your world. And the number one thing is to recognize your audience. And we've been talking about this from the beginning of the semester of remembering to recognize who your audience is and what they do, because each thing that they do winds up influencing how you would operate as an entrepreneur. Products that you might suggest could be useful, because it's all about ease and it's all about influence.